Okay, it looks like we're recording. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming this morning. Thank you for being dedicated and being here on a Saturday morning. That's awesome. This is for our kids, right? This is for to support our students in New Mexico. So I'm just so glad that you all are joining in. So I know I'm gonna ask that everybody mutes right now too. If you're not muted, please mute. I hear like a little bit of noise, not sure who that is. So just check your mute button and see if you're muted. If not, please do. So the first thing we're gonna do is just go and do introductions and introduce ourselves. And then we'll go ahead and get started with the agenda. I can put the agenda in the chat if you need me to while we're doing our roll call. So I like to introduce myself. My name is Johnna Rocker Clinton, and I am the Black Education Advisory Council chair. I'm also an assistant principal at Alamogordo High School. And I'm happy to be here and serve you all. So I will pass it over to our co-chair, Dr. Stephanie Mack, so she can introduce herself.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Stephanie Mack, and I am the co-chair of the Advisory Council. Good morning to everyone, and I am the CEO and owner and operator of A+ Class Act Consulting, and I also am an educator at the Jemez Pueblo in the education department. I am an administrator there. So good morning to everyone. Thank you.
Kim, are you available to introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And I apologize that I am not visible. I am moving this morning, so things are just a little bit hectic, but I appreciate your time and dedication. As Johnna said, I am Kimberly York, and I have the privilege of leading the Black Education Act Bureau and the work throughout the state. And I will turn it over to Javon.
Good morning. I am Javon Bellacourt. I am the professional learning coordinator for the Black Education Act. I've just come on board no more than 2 weeks ago, so I'm still in the very steep learning curve. So good morning to you all.
Javon, our tradition is to pass it on to a person, so you can call anyone you would like to call out.
Oh, okay, let me see. How about Norma Vasquez?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Pardon my voice. My name is Norma Vasquez. I am an employee of the Public Health Department. I am the family engagement for community outreach. And so I'm happy to be here and look forward to our work connecting. A shout out to Dr. Mack, who is also on our advisory board. So she's a very busy woman. And thank you all for the work that you do. And I look forward to working with us. I will be leaving here in a few minutes. I'm going to try to get on my phone. I am actually working an outreach today, so I wish I could be two places at once, but I'm certainly going to try to be on my phone for the rest of the day and try to definitely catch the 11 o'clock with a family engagement. So thank you so very much for having me and the work that you all do. I will pass it on to Nancy Lopez.
Buenos dias, familia. My name is Nancy Lopez. I am professor of sociology at the University of New Mexico, also director and co-founder of the Institute for the Study of Race and Social Justice, and privileged to be co-chairing the Data and Policy Subcommittee of the Black Education Act. So thrilled to be here and looking forward to the work ahead. I'll pass it on to Joseph.
Good morning, I'm Joseph Ulibarri. I'm a charter school music teacher and also chair of the Curriculum Professional Development Committee. And I'll pass it on to, let's see if I can see the list very well here. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, Brandy.
Hi, everyone. I am still trying to get my Teams to work, so I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Brandy.
Okay, I can't see anything. The screen is just black, but I'm Brandy Stone. I'm Director for African American Student Services. And since I can't see anyone, I don't know who to pass it off to.
I'll help you, Brandy. We'll pass it on to Monique.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monique Matute Chavarria. I'm Assistant Professor of Special Education at New Mexico State University, and I am also co-chairing the Family Subcommittee with Romulus. And I will pass it off to Romulus.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Romulus Charles. I am the Director of Operations for the Native American Community Academy here in Albuquerque, and also the co-chair with Monique. And I will be passing it to Martisha, if you haven't gone.
Good morning. I'm Martika. I'm an authorizing administrator with the Charter Schools Division. I've just been with the PED for just a couple of months now, so I'm excited to join the conversation. I'd like to pass it to Sandra.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Aaron. I am serving as the secretary for the Advisory Council, and I serve on the Data and Policy Subcommittee with various others of us. Dr. Lopez leads us, and recently retired last year as educator from South Valley Academy Charter School, and I'm currently an instructional coach with Core New Mexico. Let's see, I'll pass it on to Dr. Stowe.
Hi, good morning. So glad to be returning to the space. Kenneth Stowe. I'm currently the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at New Mexico Public Education Department, and it's good to see some familiar faces today. And I don't know if I was the last one. Dr. Mack, did you get a chance to introduce yourself?
Yes, I think everybody has gone. If I am mistaken, please cut me off right now.
I think so too. I was trying to
Yeah.
keep track as we're going along.
Yes. So I think everybody has introduced themselves. Thank you so much for your introductions, and I'm so glad to have you all here. So I'll just go ahead and go through the agenda really quick. I did post the agenda in the chat. So if you need to open that, you can go ahead and do so. And for those of you, I hear people are like traveling and all of that. So I'll just go ahead and like briefly read through the agenda so that you're aware of what we'll be covering today. So the first thing we'll do is just go through staff updates and all the new people at PED. And we'll talk about book development committee. We'll talk about position papers, collaboration with the Hispanic Education Act, and we'll talk about listening tours that the people, you know, inside the Black Education Act that people want to go on and what that looks like. We'll talk about the Black Student Alliance, and we'll review our committee roster. I think that there's a lot of updates that we need to make to our committee roster. We'll talk about council recruitment, and we'll talk also about our monthly meeting calendar, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion about that. And I think most of us are on the same page, but we want to make sure that everybody understands what our meeting schedule looks like so that we're all prepared. And then we'll just go through our committee reports and reviews, and everybody can report out. And then we'll have announcements if there's any announcements, and closing remarks, and then we'll be out of here. Does anybody have any questions about the agenda? All righty, so then I'll open it up to Kim to go ahead and talk about those PED staff updates and go through all of those things listed there.
Good morning again, and for everyone that I did not have an opportunity to greet, if you just joined us, I am Kimberly, and I have the privilege of leading the Black Education Act Bureau, and I am very grateful that you all are here. Please know that if you work outside of PED, you are a community member. We really look forward to learning more about your organization, the work that you are doing, and also how we can collaborate with you, because we are not an island unto ourselves, and we proudly serve and support all students throughout New Mexico. And so we are looking for intersectional collaborations that will help us to strengthen the support network for our students. I do apologize again that for me not being visible, I am in the process of moving. But I want to say thank you to my advisory council, who is probably the best on the planet. And I want to say thank you again to you all, because our attendance at these meetings are continuing to grow. And so that means that you all are very interested in what we are doing. And so we never wanted to go unsaid that we appreciate you. So the first update that I have, I'm very, very proud to reintroduce our very own Javon Bellacore. She brings 15 years of special education experience to us. And I'm going to allow her to share a little bit more about herself as she feels comfortable. But please know that she is brand new and she has jumped in feet first, heart heavy, to do this work and to lift and to support our educators as well as our students. So Javon, I'll turn it over to you.
I have been a Albuquerque, New Mexico resident for about 9 years, transplant from Minnesota. I brought my mother and my son down here with me, so my family's here with me as well. And I taught at James Monroe Middle School my first 2 years here, and the last 6 years I was at Jimmy Carter Middle School as the SES1 teacher. So that was the socio-emotional student support, small group center-based classes was my heart. And they moved the program. So I decided that I needed to maybe find something that was a little bit more challenging, and that would help me grow professionally and help me to help the professional education. So I joined Kimberly and your team.
Thank you so much for that, Javon. She is very modest. She has already, right after her interview, she had already created some very robust professional development things, and she has already also been creating more things that can support this work. So, Johnna, if you can remind me of the next thing that's on the agenda.
Of course. We're gonna talk about Black History Month celebration, collaboration, possible collaboration.
Okay, perfect. And so that actually would be also Javon. But I want to share this thought that we've been kind of tossing around, and it's going to tie into another agenda item, which is the book development. So we had at our last meeting, we talked about the need for culturally relevant New Mexico authored books that will be able to be used in the curriculum and in our classrooms, and also throughout organizations that serve students. And so what we are planning to do is we would like to do some oral history, and that will then turn into a book that can be published by our very own. And so we've already had some people on our council that have signed up to do that. And so that is in the works. But regarding the Black History Month, before I turn it over to Javon, we will be creating a podcast where we can feature some of our very own African-American historians in New Mexico. We know that the contributions of African Americans and Blacks in New Mexico is very rich and often overlooked and undertold. And so we are going to turn over every stone. Right here in my own city at Las Cruces, we have Mr. Clayton Flowers, who is 106 years old, and he is a Tuskegee Airman. And so we are going to be tapping into the rich history and contributions of our very own. And so if you have someone that you know that has contributed to New Mexico and to the world in any kind of way, African Americans, please put them on our radar, because in during February for Black History Month, we will be featuring them on our podcast that will inform our book. And so, Javon, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the collaborative effort that we're looking to do with the Divine Nine. And for some people, Javon, if you could explain what Divine Nine is.
So the Divine Nine are the 9 sororities and fraternities that were founded at historically Black college and universities for African American men and women. I am a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. We were founded in 1922, actually at Butler University, which was one of the headquarters for the Ku Klux Klan in the United States. So we were very, very active in the community in regards to education, because it is an educational sorority. I did attend the meeting, and the leader is Shawnee Harvey. So I contacted her. They were in the very, very, very beginning preliminary stages. So they don't know whether or not they want to do a week or a day or 3 days, and they don't know when they want it to happen. So it was very, the discussion was mainly about trying to get organized in general in regards to what or when they wanted the event to happen. So once they have solidified their dates, either the day, the 3 days, or the week, then they're going to go forward and look for individuals to participate. It is mainly for Black entrepreneurs and businesses. So I did reach out to them as a community person to try to get them to elicit some members from that those community organizations to be a part of the council. So I'm just waiting for a return contact from Ms. Harvey.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to chime in real quick and say that if anybody has any ideas or anything for a Black History Month celebration, or something that, that you feel like we could collaborate with, or that we should be a part of, or that we could do for Black History Month, just feel free to, put that in the chat, say something about that, send out an email, if there's anything that you're just that is heavy on you, or that you've been thinking about. Please, let's figure something out. But thank you so much, Javon, for attending that meeting, and keep us updated on, how things progress.
Thank you, Javon. And so I think I already talked a little bit about the book development, but I had the privilege of being a part of the Black Education Act committee when it was being developed. And I also had the privilege of testifying before the legislatures about the importance of Black education. And so one of the premises that the statute points out is the need for culturally relevant material and curriculum. And so we know that, there's things that are in other states, but New Mexico is a very different and a very unique culture. And so we want to make sure, again, as I stated, that we are capturing the rich contributions of Blacks and African Americans right here in New Mexico. And we have enough talented people that can develop that that tool and that resource that we need. It would be easy to hire someone from another state and tell them what we want and all of those things, but we are going to rely on the talents and the expertise of those who are right here in New Mexico and are a part of the rich history and the rich culture that is Black and African Americans. And I'm going to pause because I see Dr. Lopez's hand. So I'm going to go ahead and allow you to have the floor, Dr. Lopez.
Yes, I was just wondering if you considered archiving the oral histories in the digital repository at any of the universities. The University of New Mexico has an oral history repository, and it would be great to do both and to do the book, of course, but also to have it archived perpetually in that digital archive so that people can hear but also see the videos. Just a suggestion.
Thank you for that. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Lopez, I think that you signed up to be on that committee, I think, that book development committee. But yeah, we are open. We are in the very much so the infancy stages of thinking about things. And so, yes, we will definitely consider that and any other ideas that people would like to bring to make this a much needed, robust resource that we can use in many ways. And I think I just saw Kenneth's hand go up.
Thank you. Who's the primary audience for this book?
Primarily, it is a resource to be used in schools by educators. And of course, we know that, once it gets to the phase of being able to be vetted by your process, the internal process that PED has for approval. But it is also to be used as a supplemental resource that teachers can tap into, and anyone that is working with our students, because we know that representation matters, and we hear over and over and over again the need for this resource because it does not exist. And so parents also, we get calls and we get information from constituent services all the time asking about why we are not teaching their Black students about their Black history and about their Black, the contributions of Blacks in New Mexico. And so I would say that it is a wide reaching audience and target. I hope I answered your question, Ken.
Ken, are you asking about grade levels too? Like, are you saying like, is this a secondary? Yeah, are you saying secondary,
Yeah,
post-secondary, elementary? Okay.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was trying to understand. If this was going to be, it sounds like a primarily secondary text.
Well, not necessarily, because when we initially, before Simone transitioned, she was our curriculum coordinator, and she had the vision that there would be a book for, for lower grades, but then there would also be a book that could be used in the history classes in middle and high school in high schools as well. So we will, again, it's in the very, very infancy stages. And so we will be doing the brain mapping for it, and we will have a very clearly articulated plan for the development.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And even if like this first book, if it's more appropriate for the secondary grades, we can create like an instructional guide for the earlier grades, so teachers in the elementary space can still leverage the stories, testimonials, and knowledge that's contained in this book in their lower grades and classes, right? So I think this is a great idea. I'd also like to advocate that we really search for contemporary stories, testimonials of Blacks living here in New Mexico, and be able to share out to students what's currently going on in this space here in New Mexico.
Yes, absolutely. And another provision of the statute is that in higher ed, I know that there are Africana studies both at UNM and NMSU, but I know that there is also a need for more specified curriculum. And I don't know if Brandy or Dr. Lopez can speak to that, but I know that those resources, that resource that we are creating just does not exist. And so we are trying to fill a much needed void to improve the quality of instruction by means of resources that are available to the people who are in the trenches with our students.
And last little tag that I put in there, once we do have this resource in our lab, we definitely want to get it on the supplemental instructional materials list, but we also should list this resource in the Social Studies New Mexico instructional scope. So we kind of get it embedded in the new updated social studies standards.
Thank you, Ken, and we'll make sure that, of course, we collaborate internally at PED with your department currently, but we'll make sure that we're intentional about inviting you to the continued conversations and development.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Before we move on, Kim, can we, I want to make sure that Dr. Trujillo, if she's feeling well enough, has time to introduce herself. And also, Vicky Horn came in, so I wanted to make space for her to introduce herself really quickly too. And then I saw somebody, Robert Sims. So if you want to, just introduce yourselves.
Sure.
I just
Good
want to make
morning,
space for
everyone.
you.
I'm sorry, I will stay off camera. I think the pace of work finally caught up with me, so I'm a little under the weather this morning. But so happy to be a part of the conversation. I put some comments in the chat, and what I wanted to say is there are a lot of people who are doing some really great oral history work, so that if we wanted to engage graduate students, I know some professors who could perhaps help us create the framework of how we could train grad students. And then hopefully, engage, folks across the higher ed institutions across the state. And that would be a really great way to make sure that we leave no region uncovered.
That sounds like a brilliant idea. And that's why one of the reasons I'm so grateful, Dr. Trujillo, that you are a part of the committee.
Thank you.
Hey, Vicky, can you introduce yourself really quickly?
Hello, I'm Vicky Horn. I'm a teacher at Explore Academy. I teach science, and I'm here to kind of help with work on the online developing curriculum so that it could be accessed online on the online resource bank.
Thank you, Vicky. And then Robert Sims, are you still here? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Sims Jr. I'm a principal at Los Lunas High School. It is definitely a privilege to be a part of this this committee this morning. I'm just playing catch up right now because I missed a few meetings, but good morning to everyone.
Good morning and thank you. So the next thing, Kim, is position papers.
Yes, so this is just to backtrack to bring people up to speed about the previous conversation. So we currently, the statute calls for white papers, and so we engaged in some robust discussion about the possibility of coming up with a different term to explain what white papers really are. And so for those who are not familiar with that terminology, white papers is providing some information about a specific topic with recommendations for best practices or trends related to that topic. For instance, discipline among Black students. And so we currently have one white paper by quote unquote the terminology in the statute, but we are proposing that we use a different term so that it is more welcoming and more in layman's terms that people can understand it, because we want to make sure that while we are adhering to the guidelines of the statute, we also want to be mindful of our parents and our students who may want to access this information. And so we currently have a number of very, very research savvy members on our council, i.e. Dr. Lopez to be one, and others, but we currently have one position paper is which is the term that we are recommending that we change it to, and so that is on the importance of culturally relevant material. And as soon as that is vetted by our comms team at PED, we will be getting that posted on our website. And so I know that Joseph Ulibarri has already reached out to say that he is very interested in writing a position paper or / white paper. And so we want to make sure that we are capturing the current information that is relevant to Black students, Black families, and how we can fulfill our number one requirement of the statute, which is to improve educational outcomes in a very holistic way. And for me, that means that we need to consider things like mental health, resources, the lack thereof. And so if you are interested or have a body of work that can help to inform the mission of the Black Education Act, please let us know. I know that in the very near future, Dr. Lopez will be contributing. And I know that, again, Joseph has reached out to say that he's also interested. So any questions? I see Dr.
Dr.
Lopez.
Lopez has, yeah.
I just have a suggestion. I'm wondering if it would make more sense for each subcommittee to just work on a position paper rather than having a separate committee, because we actually have one in the works, and I'll talk about that when I do the committee report. I just think organizationally it might make more sense to do that.
And you know me, Dr. Lopez, I believe in working smarter rather than harder. So I am down for it 100%.
Yeah, may I?
Go ahead, Joseph.
Okay. Going along with what Dr. Lopez said as well, within those committees, I think we can really decide more like the topic too. It's like, I feel like right now there's like this random number of position papers that could possibly exist, but I think we need to narrow it down to what exactly. But honestly, just talking about it, we can narrow it down to what the topics of our subcommittees are. And then from there, we can narrow it down to whatever the committees decide. What topics do we need to talk about within those committees?
Agreed. Anybody have anything else on position papers?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say, I was typing it in the chat also. This is just a gentle recommendation, but I'm a part of another Native research collective, and we really try to not refer to policy briefs as white papers, right? To decenter that concept of whiteness, even in this positionality. So I would just recommend if we could refer to them maybe as policy briefs, or think of another way to refer to them. In that collective, they have chosen to call them red papers. And so just understanding like how we decenter whiteness in all ways, I just wanted to advocate for that.
Dr. Trujillo, if you look in the chat, we did talk about calling them black papers at our at our retreat. And I think Kim went ahead with position papers. So yeah, we did talk about calling them black papers.
Sorry, I missed that conversation.
Yeah, thank you. It's not solidified yet because it is written in statute. And so there is a process where we would need to follow in order to officially get it changed. But internally, right now, we can definitely call them. And so position papers was something that came up by our previous curriculum coordinator. And so that was the only reason that I used that, but nothing's etched in stone. And again, we want to make sure that for the record that we understand that it is written in statute as white papers, but we did have a robust discussion about that and making sure that we can inform that requested change.
Okay, Dr. Lopez.
Yeah, I just want to underscore how important it is, what we call it. So I was thinking policy briefs for action and impact. I mean, they're not about just things that are going to sit on some website. They are about policies for action and impact. So I would urge us to consider calling it something like that.
Okay, well noted, and we will definitely take that into consideration. Thank you, Dr. Lopez.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is collaboration with the Hispanic Education Ad Council.
Yes, so we want to make sure that as a bureau, we are very intentional, and I do mean very intentional about reaching across the intersecting identities of all students that we serve. While the number one goal of Black Education Act is to increase the educational outcomes for Black students by addressing racial discrimination and underlying factors, we know that we have a lot of students that have intersecting identities, and the Hispanic Education Act, for those of you who don't know, has been around since 2010. And so recently, Julia Rosa joined PED as the as the Hispanic Education Act liaison. And so we work very collaboratively together. And so we will be planning a joint retreat with their council. That's in the very, very early discussion phases right now. But one of the things that came up at the at the Hispanic Education Act mini summit was about intersecting identities. And so we want to tap into that and make sure that we are also meeting that need of students. And it's not just Hispanic Education Act, but again, any bodies of other additional works that support students, we are wanting to make sure that we are collaborating. But right now we have some very intentional things in the works with HEAC is the acronym.
Does anybody have anything to add to that or comment? Okay, so we'll move on to listening tours.
Yes, so we want to make sure that we, originally we were calling them town halls, and I am wanting to move away from that because it doesn't really capture the intent of what we are trying to do, which is one, to increase the awareness about the Black Education Act, but also we want to have some very informed actions around the work that we are doing to support students and families and educators. And so that comes by way of listening. I'm borrowing that term from the Hispanic Education Act, who has been doing a lot of work in this area. And so we want to get out into our communities. We know that a lot of districts are moving to the community schools model. And I know that here in Las Cruces, we are doing that. But I want to make sure that we are beginning in January, and I'm going to ask Johnna to talk about that a little bit. Starting in January, we are going to begin some very strategic listening tours in the four quadrants of the state, making sure that we are getting out and actively listening to what our students, what our parents, and what our educators need so that we can build our work and our supports around their needs and not just what we feel like they should have or that they need. So if you are a community member, please, we look for collaborative efforts around securing space, securing access to community people, students. So please let us know if you have any recommendations of space or communities that are readily available and willing to host us.
So currently we're looking at starting in January. So January, February, March, and every other week going out into the state. And that could be anywhere that serves a stakeholder, right? It could be with students, parents, school leaders, with community members, school personnel. It can be with any of those people. So if you have a school district or a a community access point that needs to have more awareness about the Black Education Act, please let us know. But things are in the beginning works of planning, so nothing is completely solidified. This is me and Devin thinking through the hotline things that we would like to have on site, reporting. We would like to talk about our new software updates, and just like explain what the hotline is. All of those things, just spreading awareness about the hotline and just being accessible. So any ideas, comments, concerns, places that you think we really need to go, please, feel free.
And if I could add to that, Johnna, if you are having a community event, please, we want to not just, engage with you when it's centered around but we also want to be supportive and have a presence at your events as well. So please let us know if there's anything that you are aware of that is going to be happening where you feel like we should be attending.
Hello, may I say something?
Absolutely.
Am I allowed to say something? I am new to this board, even though I am on the Black Education Act. My name is Donika Dunlap. I am with Cuba Independent Schools. I believe Dr. Lopez has been working with Dr. Sanchez. So again, I am part of the Black Education Act Committee. We do have a Black Education Act website for the schools. So I was asking if I could just put up my email, because I would love to have links to the information to add to our site. So we are really moving forward with that. So everyone is welcome to come to our site. It does have some, historical value and lessons, but I would love to add information that I'm hearing here, if you all don't mind, especially about the events and different contacts, please.
If you go ahead and put your website in the chat, please, and your email in the chat, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to mute myself. Thank you so much, everybody.
And I do want to acknowledge you, because I did just recently receive an email, and I'm not sure if it was from you. I apologize. I've been out of the office, but I did receive an email from someone in Cuba requesting a site visit. And so, yes, if you can send that message back, that we are definitely willing to come.
Great. Yes. And that was me. I want to definitely get connected to everyone here. Again, this is my first time coming to this meeting, so I definitely want to roll up my sleeves and get busy and working with everybody. And thank you so much for having this.
Thank you. And Brandy, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to share that this past month, we actually received quite a bit of calls to our office. I don't know if it was that they were thinking we were the racial hotline, or if they were just concerned. And so my team has questions around, like, we've had a lot of Northern New Mexico families and schools calling us, asking us for anti-racist training to do inside of their schools. Is your thought that we sent them to your hotline to report, but is the thought that they would receive, if they needed training, they would contact you all to do a training in the school? Or do centers like ours should still provide services like that to the public education schools who might need additional support?
Yeah, Kim actually does go to schools and does training, so they can be referred to Kim for anti-racism training, and she could also connect them with outside anti-racism training, because that's some of the training that we got during at the conference. So and then there is also some training on Canvas, and any, secondary or elementary school would understand that. But there's training available to PK-12 educators. So yes, refer them. I would refer them to Kim, or anybody in IET or Black education. Depends on, I would you could refer them to Dr. Bannerman as well. Do you have anything to add, Kim?
Yes, I would strongly encourage that they reach out directly to Javon, who is our professional learning coordinator. That is her primary role. But yes, I am, as already stated, I already provide trainings. In fact, I'm going to be in January, we're going to be providing anti-racism training for the entire Las Cruces public schools. And so that is something that I'm very familiar with. And, and even for higher education institutions, that is why we exist, is to provide those kind of professional development supports. But I also wanted to address the other part of your question, Brandy, about the hotline. So every school district is required to have the hotline phone number on their website. There has to be a link, that is statute. And so if there is some concern, you can feel free to, to provide them with the hotline number, or you can actually give them my contact information, and we can get them routed. But we definitely don't want you to have to take on the additional work of the hotline, so to speak. We do have Johnna is a part of that support, but definitely feel free to reach out and let families or whoever is reporting racism or concerns about racism or discrimination directly to the hotline. I hope we did that answer your question, Brandy?
Yeah, it did. I was talking to my team, and we just wanted to make sure that we were consistent with whatever messages. And so, to be clear, it's not educators that are calling us asking, it's parents that are calling, asking for support in the school. And so we will refer, and should we also refer Javon to them to get the educators and the parents connected for training? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it absolutely makes sense. And soon we will be hiring a family and community engagement coordinator.
Okay,
and
great.
So, a part of the statute is providing support to parents and caregivers as well. And so, yes, we will definitely gladly accept the referrals that you send us, and the families that you send us. Thank you for that information, Brandy.
Okay, awesome. And I think Dr. Trujillo has a great point that maybe the Black Education Act, the Indian Education Act, and the Hispanic Education Act, maybe our professional development coordinators or maybe our family and community coordinators need to collaborate for anti-racism training. That would be, I'm just throwing it out there because Dr. Trujillo has a great point. And the Javon did put her information in the chat, and I'm so sorry I did not even think about that, Javon, because you're so new. I'm like, oh yeah, you do professional development, duh. Okay, but anyway, so I apologize for that. Did anybody have anything to add about any of that?
I wanted to say to Dr. Trujillo's point, it's a very valid point. When we had our Black Education Act conference in June, the feedback that we got was that they wanted to hear more about the acts. And so we are definitely going to have a panel that includes that invites all of the acts and all of IET, so that people can know that we are a division and that we do work collaboratively together. And the other thing that I'll say, and I'll be quiet, is that when we get referrals to the hotline, we definitely reach across the appropriate acts and the appropriate divisions and departments to collaboratively work together to help to bring about support for whoever is making those referrals.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So we're gonna move on to the Black Student Alliance.
I'm sorry, I feel like I have been taking up your whole meeting. I'll be very brief on this, but I am so excited. We have the privilege of working with many stakeholders and many other youth serving organizations across the state, and the State Office of African American Affairs is high on that list. And so we have been working very, very diligently to meet the need of culturally relevant in-school supports for students. And right now, there was previously Black student unions, and under the leadership of Amy Whitfield, who has transitioned out of the State Office of African American Affairs. But the number one thing that we did was change the name to be more inclusive. And so it is now the Black Student Alliance to welcome students who are non-Black or students who have, again, intersecting identities that want to participate. We never want to give the appearance of being exclusive. But we are working to revive and to revamp and relaunch Black student alliances first in high schools. And so that will be throughout the state. I can only speak for myself as living in Las Cruces, but Black student unions were, it seemed to me, just something that was very popular up in the north in Albuquerque. But we are very intentional about making sure that this is going to be available to all students. We do have a rollout plan because I know that some people will ask, well, what about middle and elementary school? So we're looking at a peer mentor model for this, where we start with the high schools and the advisors there, and then we work to have a trickle down support for the lower grades. I am very, very proud, and I can't speak about too many of the details, but I am very, very proud to announce that we have the State Office of African American Affairs, and our collaboration has received a committed funding from the Kellogg Foundation to support this work. There will be a Black Student Alliance conference in the works, and so please stay tuned for that. With regards to the funding, I don't want to prematurely speak about too many of the details because we have not yet discussed it in full with the State Office of African American Affairs. But please know that those things are in the works and that a conference is definitely in the planning processes. And as soon as we get more information, I will definitely be passing that along.
Okay, thank you, Kim. So does anybody have anything on that? Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to first of all, do we need a break? It's almost been an hour. So do we need a quick, do we need a 5-minute break or anything like that? I see head shaking. Okay, I see head shaking no, so I'm gonna keep moving. All righty. So let's move on to review our committee roster. So I personally don't have a roster. Does anybody have a link to a roster? Because I was told that we had one, but after looking through my my Google Drive, I don't see one. We could just go ahead and I could record names now so that we have it, but I don't personally have a roster. Anybody? Okay. All right. So then let's just go ahead, and if you guys could put in the chat, what your, okay. All right. Dr. Mack says she doesn't have one here. So if you could, for me, put in the chat your name and what you are representing that comes from the statute. So I think Dr. Matute, you would be representing family, and community engagement, right? So then you would put that. So you'll put your name and like what part of the statute you would be representing, what committee. Okay, that way I can put together a roster, and that way we have everybody's names and who they represent or what they represent. You believe you have one? Okay. If you can
I'm
link
sorry.
that would be great.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Johnna. There is one in the Google Drive, and I'm sorry that it's not easily accessible, but there is one, but it does need to be updated, and
Right. So
I'm
let's
going to
just
make
still do
sure.
that. Yeah, let's
Okay.
just still do that so that we can have it updated. That way we're putting it in now, and then I'll just go through and grab everything. Okay. So if you don't mind typing that in the chat for me, and then I can update our list. Go ahead, Sandra.
I just wanted to say that in my role as secretary, as people put those in, I can copy and paste onto another document that I try to keep that has, when people put in links. And I know in the last meeting notes that I sent, I didn't include that because I was away traveling and I did a rush job on the notes, but I can do that so it relieves you, and then I'll send it on with the notes if you like.
Yes, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. So if you don't mind, just put your name and what you're representing in the in the statute. Okay. Thank you. I'll give like a minute or so that you can focus. Brandy, you're representing higher ed.
Sandra, just for the record, because she is not here, Mercedes, oh, what is Mercedes' last name? I'm sorry, I can't remember her last name, but she is the new representative for the State Office of African American Affairs, Mercedes Turner.
Could you help me out by just typing it in? I am slow with my fingers, but just type it in and I'll be sure to get it, okay?
Yeah. Okay, and now
Thank
I just
you.
want to clarify too, Dr. Mack has sent me a message and said that she is not the co-chair, she is the vice chair. She is not taking that responsibility. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you, Dr. Mack. All right, so let's, as we're typing that, let's talk about council recruitment. We talked about last time we even talked about this, we hit on this a little bit, not creating an echo chamber, and also making sure that we have teachers, making sure that we have student voices, making sure that voices are heard and we have an equitable council. And it's not just, you know, for lack of better term, an elite class of folks from in the state that are not reaching down and listening to the voices of the people on the ground. So if you have any ideas about recruitment, one of the ideas that we talked about was on those listening tours. Obviously, we would be open to recruiting people for the advisory council. Then I heard Javon talking about how when she met with the Divine Nine, she wanted to reach out to the business owners and community members so that maybe they would be a part of it, and parents as well, parents, students, teachers. We need more of that. So does anybody else have a connection in recruiting council members? Okay, well, if you come up with anything or think of anything, or you want to put something in the chat, that's fine. Or if you want to email something out later, that would be great. All right, let's move on to our calendar. And I don't know if everybody wasn't there when we talked about our calendar, but what our meeting times are going to look like, they're going to be the second Saturdays. Okay, so second Saturdays of the month. We decided that September to March, we would meet every month on the second Saturday. Okay, so September to March. And we decided this because we wanted to make sure we were active during legislative sessions. That was the idea. And then we decided that in March, after we meet in March, we would go every other month. So we would skip April, we would meet again in May. We would skip June, we would meet again in July, which July last year was our conference. So we were thinking our conference would be our meeting for July. And then we would skip August and we would start again in September, September to March every month. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay. Please let me know if you have any questions. So then that would put our next meeting date at January 14th. Okay. I'll go ahead and move on to our committee report.
Johnna, can I just say that that's the MLK weekend and a lot of us have other commitments to the walks and things like that. So that might not be a good
You're right.
Saturday.
Thank you. I didn't even, yeah, you're right. So let's maybe even we participate in a particular one. If you're not already assigned to something, or if you're not doing something with your university or your school, maybe we go to something in particular for that meeting.
I love that idea.
So if Brandy, if you're having something that you like to invite us to, if anybody's having something they'd like to invite us to, maybe we do that. So, I mean, that's something we don't have to necessarily discuss it if you don't have particulars right now, but I thank you for bringing that up, Brandy.
I'm gonna look for the MLK Commission's flyer because they have the walk that day. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on to committee reports and review. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joseph to talk about curriculum and professional development.
Hello. The Curriculum and Professional Development Committee, I gave instructions and homework about 2 weeks ago. Right now, we're working on our curriculum database. For those of you who haven't been attending our meetings, what that database is we're finding supplementary curriculum materials that are culturally relevant, particularly inclusive of Black history, and we're putting these. We are vetting these using the anti-racist tool, the CARE rubric. Each member of the committee is supposed to put at least 3 resources onto this database. And we are meeting next week on the 13th from 5:30 to 6:30 to discuss this process with Ken here, with the Director of Curriculum and Instruction with the Department of Public Education. So we are trying to get this up and running to see what this could look like for the future. We'd like this to be a resource for teachers to go to on the regular, whether this could look like a website or an application or something that could be very useful. The information that we're looking at putting on there is the title of the resource, what kind of resources it is, what standards does the resources do they address, and the link to the resource. And then we want this to be eventually to be very searchable information. So when somebody's looking for, I want something for this particular standard, they can search it quite easily. On the particular website that I've created for our team, I also just placed everything in one place so that we can access the anti-racism framework so that we know what we're working with about anti-racism, dealing with humanity, dignity, truthfulness, and every other core anti-racist structure there. So that is the first thing we've been working on. And then the next step that is kind of a sub step is to work on a professional development for our schools that some of us work at. And that professional development is creating a presentation on how to use the anti-racist rubric tool in the schools for individual teachers and their individual lessons. We will have this ready for February for each of our schools. So for instance, my principal has asked teachers for any kind of professional development opportunities that they want to bring in. And like I said, I'd like to bring this in for Black History Month. And my presentation would probably be around 20 to 30 minutes long, just to show teachers how to use the tool, walk them through it, and then have them find the resources right then and there and evaluate the resource. The other step that I wanted to talk about that as we've been going through this process of, Johnna was talking about an AP curriculum and things like that. Well, the legislature is currently looking at changing the requirements for graduation. And now that this is all new, and now that we're meeting monthly and things like that, I'm wondering if the curriculum and professional development team can be a part of this conversation, that maybe we put that African American Studies course as part of the graduation requirement, since they're looking at changing it, right? We need to do this now. This is the time to really put our voice in there. And so my question is, well, how could we be of help to be that voice? I don't know what the process is, but perhaps the curriculum professional development needs to be there. And so I think in our next meeting, I think we should talk about that. And maybe it's a little too late, obviously, to be a part of the huge conversation, but we should definitely get in the conversation right now, I'm thinking. And I was going to say another thing. Now, another goal, I think, for those position papers, there's a couple things that are on my mind. So the cultural relevance instruction, that position paper has already, somebody already wrote that paper, but I think we need to discuss specifically not just cultural relevancy, but Black inclusion, like Black history inclusion. And I think there needs to be specific talks about that. But anyway, we can talk about that at our meeting. So our next meeting will be on December 13th. And then we'll most likely meet at least like twice a month from here on out. And we've been meeting on Tuesdays. I think that's about all I can add to that.
Joseph, if it's okay, I would like to add just a couple of things, just for the hearing of people that was not at our last meeting. You can always find the recordings of our meetings on our webpage, but I do want to share that we are currently collaborating with the PED Career and Readiness Bureau, as well as the College Board, to pilot in New Mexico an advanced placement African American history course. And so currently there are 2 schools that will be participating, and that is Albuquerque Public Schools as well as Alamogordo Public Schools. And so there'll be more information about that coming. But Joseph, to your point, in the conversation with about the AP course, Cabinet Secretary Dr. Vicki Bannerman has made it very clear of her intentions to make sure that there is a general course for the African American course, and so you are spot on your report. And so I'll keep you in the loop of that conversation with Dr. Bannerman.
And are there legislation sessions or something that we can go to as a team to help support that? Or what would we, I mean, that's probably a bigger conversation, but I would like to think about that.
I do not have the answer for you right now, but I will definitely seek out the response from Dr. Bannerman and I'll follow up with you.
Sandra, is your hand up because you want to say something? Or is it just still up from before?
It's just still up. Let me see if I can take it
Okay,
down.
okay. I
Thank you.
think I can move it down for you. No
I'm still working on these names.
Okay.
Names and roles.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Joseph. I think you bring up some great points. Yeah, the change in graduation requirements has not been solidified yet. So I think you're right. Like, how can we get in on the conversation? Are they already etched out and they just haven't released them? Are they still in the works? I know they were talking about specifics, like changing the requirement from 24 to 22. There are specifics out there. So if there's specific out there, then people have already convened, right? And so if things are not etched in stone, I'm with you. How can we get a seat at the table and begin to discuss some of those things that you talked about? So, does anybody have anything to add about, go ahead, Dr. Lopez.
Just a question. I know that there was an attempt to do an ethnic studies bill that I guess wasn't put on the agenda, but it would be nice to connect with the sponsors of that and see how we can harmonize our efforts. I know Senator Linda Lopez has been working on that along with other folk. So I think that's one way that we can make this happen for, to institutionalize.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you said Linda Lopez and the there's an ethnic studies bill.
Yes, I think they've run out of time. It wasn't, since we had a short session, but it was, I think, endorsed at multiple levels. It just never got put on the agenda for vote. But I'm thinking that's already in progress, so maybe we can harmonize our efforts there.
Yes. Okay. I think that's a great idea.
And find out
Thank
when,
you,
how to make it happen this time.
Right. Right. And it needs to be ASAP too. Because it looks like like I said, that they've already convened and they're already talking about specific requirements that they're changing. And I don't know if there's something that's what I was gonna say, Kenneth. I was gonna say, I don't know if there's something that Kenneth can talk to us about. Thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I keep I'm sorry, I keep going in and out of service. So I know whoever's been allowing me to jump back in, thank you so much for just pushing that button. So a lot of conversation around the changes in graduation requirements. I think it's a great point, Joseph, that we should be part of that conversation just to make ourselves known and make it clear that we and that our advocates and that we show up in those spaces to make sure that we're advocating for our needs. However, I will say that most of what's being proposed are reductions in things, right? Taking things off of the plate instead of putting things on. So it's definitely going to be a hard won point of advocacy to get something to get a graduation requirement added on to the plate. Because not only are they reducing the number or proposing, I should say, it should always just give that caveat. This is all in proposal, pending the legislative session, but they're reducing the number of total credits needed. They're taking, the proposal was to take off the requirement for New Mexico history for graduation. So yeah, I think a lot of what's being proposed is to reduce things and take things off of the plate. But I do agree with Joseph that we should be in that space to just make ourselves known.
And when is that session?
It's going to get started here in January. I think January 15th or 16th or something like that, like the first, second week of January. And you know, it's a longer session too. Last year is our, you know, kind of financial session, so we've got some space.
Okay, thank you. Joseph, did you have anything else to add? Okay, thank you, Joseph.
You
Yeah,
know what? I'm sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, I'll email Senator Lopez and see like what she recommends. Like maybe she'll just recommend, we'll come over to this, I don't know. I have no idea what the process is, so we'll just see. And it's Linda Lopez, I'm just looking right here from Bernalillo County. Linda M. Lopez, is that the correct person?
Yeah, she's a senator, so there should be an email for all the senators.
Yes, I found the email. I'm just hoping there's not more than one Linda M. Lopez as senator. I don't know.
Don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I also wanted to share for those who are interested that on our webpage, in anticipation of Black History Month, there are 9 sample lesson plans that educators or any school personnel or anybody can tap into. Those are on our webpage. So if you, and I think that the way Simone had it structured was that there's something for American history, science, but they all feature Black historians. So you can tap into those resources.
Okay, anything else for curriculum and professional development? Okay, let's move on to data policy.
Okay, so I posted in the chat our agenda and our notes from our meeting this last Wednesday. So we're meeting the first Wednesday of the month at 5 p.m., not in January. So our next meeting would be in February. And we met last week. And we have 3 major items to report. So one of the things that we agreed to do is to create and improve our data infrastructure for equity. So we're going to have a multi-level strategy for adding parent educational attainment to all registration forms from preschool to grad school. One of the things we did was review House Bill 112, which was passed about a decade ago, and it specifically deals with higher ed. And we're trying to figure out if there's an equivalent bill. And the purpose of that bill was to require districts to disaggregate data. So some of the ideas that were shared, we're partnering with STARS, working with the Data Governance Committee, you know, and then the next step would be to inventory the school registration forms for K-12 and higher ed in at least 2 districts. One would be urban. I recommend Albuquerque, and then also a rural district, and invite students to join our committee to help with that so that we can come up with a policy brief with recommendations for the state legislature, superintendents, et cetera. So that's one major item that we're committed to seeing through. And then the second one that we talked about was creating a community of practice that really does a deep dive into intersectionality. And that would involve the public education department, but also the higher education department and related departments or agencies or other orgs that are working on these issues. And then our goal is to create guidelines for equitable data and policy. This would help us deal with some of the mysteries, like what happens when a student marks more than one race. What about Black Latinos who are often just aggregated into the Latino category? So it's impossible for us to see if there's a color line, right? In terms of discipline and access to resources, extracurriculars, et cetera. So that's one other focus. And then the third and final thing that we want to propose is a name change. So our current name is the Policy and Data Subcommittee, and we agree that it would be important to signal that this is not just a policy committee or a data committee for reporting, but it's for action. So the proposed name is a Policy and Data for Action Subcommittee. And again, it clarifies that it's about more than just compliance, but it is a purpose. The purpose is for equity impact. So I'll invite any of our members, and I should mention who they are. Our co-chair, Patricia Trujillo, and then Dr. Cynthia Weiss, Kimberly and Johnna were there, as well as Sandra, Hakeem Bellamy, Dr. Mack, and Dr. Kenneth Stowe. Anyone want to add anything or have any questions?
If I just may add a little quickly to everything you were saying, Dr. Lopez, is I just want to flag a victory at the higher ed level, working with our Data Advisory Committee, which is made up of the directors of institutional research from across all of the higher ed institutions in the state, which is, I think we probably all know that the governor signed an executive order that all agencies, all state agencies need to start collecting sexual identity and gender data. And so just to let you know, this kind of change, these changes can be made. It takes time. It took us about a year, but we are actually adding fields to our EDIR data, which is the higher ed data system, so that we're able to start collecting gender identity data in a meaningful way. And so Dr. Lopez, why I'm mentioning this is that as we tackle a lot of these different fields that you're talking about, the troubleshooting that our institutional research directors had to go through to figure out, you know, for us, it seems like it's an easy fix, but to create drop-down menus or fields where people can type in their own identities, the groundwork has been laid with this endeavor to collect gender identity. So the good news is that perhaps as we move forward, we can use that as our, how do I say, our foundation to start collecting the rest of this.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Does anybody have any questions about that or anything to add? Okay, let's move on to family and community engagement, and that would be Monique.
Hello all. The family subcommittee met. We weren't meeting for a few months, so we got back on track. Romulus and I are co-chairing it. We have committee members now. Robert Sims has joined us, and Mercedes as well from the Office of African American and Affairs. We would like to connect with the hotline committee to disseminate the family needs assessment that we had disseminated early on a few months ago at the town hall meetings. Our data wasn't reliable. We really didn't get the voices of Black families. So we would like to send out the needs assessment to families that have already been served through the hotline. And we are trying to connect with a member from the Hispanic Education Act because my colleague said they did a similar survey and received about 400 or 500 responses. So we're trying to see where they were able to disseminate that through PED. We also have a student needs assessment that's ready for PED to review and approve so we can disseminate that to the Black student alliances across New Mexico as well. Once we receive these, the data from all these needs assessments, we're working on providing workshops and trainings to serve Black families and Black students. And I think that's it. We are meeting every second month, second Monday of the month at 2:30. So if you'd like to join our meetings, please let me know and I can send you those invites as well. Another thing is we wanted to add a demographic question as well, because this is something we were running in to make sure we capture the intersection identities of our students. So that was a question we had. So I believe Kim emailed Dr. Lopez. So we're going to work on those demographic questions within our surveys as well. So if you like to see those, they're actually in the Google Drive folder as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so then I'll go ahead and move on to the hotline. So I already talked about doing district tours, going around into the community, doing those listening tours, and making sure that we spread awareness about the Black Education Act and all of the statutes that it has to offer. We for the hotline, we officially have our new software is live. So within that software, there's the ability to house all of the information that is being collected, right? So like you can send emails through the software. That way, all the emails regarding that particular incident are housed right there in that incident. And it's not like one thing is that we get a lot of IPRAs, right? And so then you're able to, if we need to turn that information over to legal or anything like that, it's all right there. Any kind of pictures or videos that kind of prove what's going on in that incident can be housed right there. All the demographic information, all the school information can be housed within that incident in that report. So it's really cool software. It really within 1 year that the hotline has pretty much been live, and we had been using a Google form, and so now having this software is like amazing. So a future phase for the software is the data migration. And so that we're able to see, as I talked about in our last meeting, we can see what is happening in specific communities, right? Or what is happening across the state, and does that look different across the state? And then we would like to have districts to have their own portal, so that and then maybe there's an equity council person or a person that's over equity who houses the or who is able to like look up the incidences or like see where we are in the process of answering that incident. So we'd like that to happen. And then we'd also like to have community members with a portal and with access. That's kind of in the discussion phases, but that's a future idea. And I think it's something that will be in the works with we're working with Salesforce MTX. So that's something we'll be discussing with them. And that is all. Any questions? All righty. So then we'll go ahead and move on to public relations. So Kim, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, and this will be a very brief update, just that we are in desperate need of students. And I would even extend this invitation to college students as well, to inform the public relations, because we want students to be the face of this committee. So Brandy, if you have any of your amazing students that would like to be a part of the advisory council, please let me know.
Any questions, comments on that? Thank you, Brandy. All righty. So obviously we had already talked about this, that our next meeting would be January 14th, but we talked about maybe having a central location for whatever walk or march that we were going to do. However, I do understand that other people might already have previous engagements for MLK Day. You might already be, hosting something at your university or your school or in your department. So if that's the situation, can you please just let me know in an email, or if you want to invite us to come out, that would be great. I don't have any other announcements. Does anybody else have any announcements?
I just have one, save the date, March 29th through the 31st. We are looking to have our second annual Black Education Act conference. Information will be coming out soon. We're working with an REC, and so soon as those things are solidified, I'll be sending out more information.
Awesome. Anything else? Okay, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for spending this time on your Saturday to focus on Black education. I'm just grateful to have you all here. I'm grateful to be able to work with you, to get to know you, and I hope we continue this momentum because it is definitely needed. Kim, do you have any closing remarks? Also, Dr. Mack, if you have any closing remarks.
I just want to echo your sentiments that we are truly, truly grateful. Our meetings are growing by the numbers, but we also know that it's not just about the numbers, but the quality of people that are here and invested in New Mexico students. And so I never want it to go unsaid that we are grateful and we look forward to building long-lasting, sustainable relationships with you all. Thank you so much.
And with that being said, we will give you the rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, bye. Before I say goodbye, I think it would be good for me in this role as secretary to have a date or a timeline or a deadline for when to get notes. That would be to you, to Kimberly, and Dr. Mack. Is that who I send it to? Because I think I left you off last time.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I got them.
Right.
Do you think a week is good if we say like 1 week, the Saturday following that you get out the notes? Would that be good? Would that give you time?
Okay, and well, I'm thinking of the way I did it. Are you talking about the notes to the three of you or notes to everybody? I think in the past.
They can go to everybody.
The notes can go to everybody?
Do you think so? I think so.
Okay.
You could send them, maybe send them to us and then we'll send them out. Maybe Kim might need to look through them first.
Right, I think, because I like, second eyes on, I'm not going to get everything right, I'm doing it in the moment. So I'm thinking then if like within 3 days following, because this is a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking by Tuesday, because memory.
Okay.
Yeah, helps, if I get it out faster.
Okay.
Right?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Sandra, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me know I was still muted when I joined in.
Oh, no, that's okay.
All right.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Bye.